I'm excited. I'm excited what God has to offer to us this morning in His Word, and I just want to start out by kind of opening up with an idea and a question. Have you ever just wanted something more? I was thinking about. I was talking to my wife in between services, and I remembered a story about one of our former maintenance men at the church I previously served at. His name was Jim. And the men had gone to one of those Promise Keeper events, I believe it was what it was. They had gone away, and they were stopping in Indiana by this buffet. You know, it was one of those buffets that had everything, steak and shrimp and crab legs. And, I mean, you paid out your nose for it, but you could eat anything and everything that you wanted. And Jim had gone up to the line, and he decided what he really just wanted, what he wanted more of, was just a bunch of coleslaw, fresh-made coleslaw, and he piled it on his plate. And he got back to his seat to eat it, and as he ate it, he realized that he had not actually gotten fresh coleslaw, he'd actually gotten fresh horseradish. He wanted something more, and it was not horseradish. The other day, yesterday, I was cooking for the family, and one of my favorite things to cook is to make homemade spaghetti sauce. I don't like the stuff out of the jar. And so we took some of the tomatoes we canned this last year, and I began to cook and make my marinara sauce that eventually I added the meat to make homemade spaghetti. I've gotten quite good at it. I know how much to fix so I don't make too much. With 5 kids, trying to get the right balance, you deal with an issue. And I know I can get by right now with 2 jars of tomatoes, a pound of hamburger meat, and 1 box of noodles. And so I made the spaghetti, and sure enough, when it was all said and done, there was nothing, there was no extra. But my boys are starting to get a little bigger, and when they go back for seconds, and there's not seconds, you know, they have that feeling of wanting something more. And I'm afraid their legs are just going to get more hollow as they get older. Have you ever just wanted something more? Maybe it's not that. Maybe have you ever left out, or somebody's left out an ingredient? Like, for instance, you're making cookies. And you go to bite into those cookies, they just smell so good. And when you go take a bite of them, you realize a portion, if not all, of the sugar's been left out. And rather than tasting sweet and wonderful and warm, they taste salty and nasty. Ever happened? Okay, maybe only in my house. A feeling of wanting something more. A feeling of wanting something more. Maybe it's one more day of vacation. Maybe it's one more moment in time. Maybe it's a little more money. We've all come to a point in our lives where we wanted something more. What we've had has not been enough. And the truth is, there's very much a spiritual application. There have been times where we have wanted more of God's presence in our life, when we've felt that He has not been there, when we felt like we have been abandoned and we have been left, or maybe it's been our own walking out in the wrong path, the wrong road. There's a spiritual need, a desire, a longing for something more. And that's why we come to church, isn't it? We have come to church with a hope and an expectation that we're going to find something more that our hungering souls are wanting. With that idea in mind, I'd ask for you to turn to Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1, verses 16 to 28. As he was passing along by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew and Simon's brother. They were casting a net into the sea, since they were fishermen. "Follow me," Jesus told them, "and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. Going along a little further, he saw James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. They were in their boat mending their nets, and immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. Then they went to Capernaum, and right away he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath and began to teach, and they were astonished at his teaching, because unlike the scribes he was teaching them as one having authority. Just then a man with unclean spirit was in the synagogue, and he cried out, "What do you have to do with us, Jesus Nazarene? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him and said, "Be quiet and come out of him." And the unclean spirit convulsed him and shouted with a loud voice and came out of him. Then they were all amazed, so they began to argue with one another, saying, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands and even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." His fame then spread throughout the entire vicinity of Galilee. I got to be honest with you, when I read these passages, there's a certain sense of frustration at times as a preacher. When you read that there at the very beginning in verses 16 and 17, that Jesus walked along and he saw these two men who were fishing, and he said, "Come follow me and I'll make you fishers of men," and they just leave their livelihood and follow him. I mean, what preacher doesn't want that? How many times have I preached about service just in the couple years I've been here at Rush? I would love to preach a sermon and then all of a sudden you just have an overwhelming group of people just say, "Pastor, we'll do anything and everything you want to do. We'll leave our jobs. We'll go to the ends of the earth. Whatever you want, Pastor, that's what we want to do." To my knowledge, not only has that never happened to me, but I don't know a preacher that's ever happened to. And then you look at that and you think to yourself, man, that is frustrating. What am I supposed to garner from that? That somehow I'm not doing my job correctly? That somehow I'm falling short? How is it that Jesus could just ask? And it happens. Then he goes to two other gentlemen, and they leave mending the nets. Now, maybe they wanted to get out of the work for the day. That's a possibility. That crossed my mind. But they didn't just go away for the day. They walked away and followed Jesus for the next 3 years. Then rationality takes over, and I realize that I'm not Jesus. Jesus, my friends, sees something more. There was something that happened to happen with Peter. And there was something that happened with Andrew. And there was something that happened with John. And there was something that happened with those gentlemen. In church the week before, something occurred. Some spiritual moment took place in their prayer time. Something happened, and they were already waiting for that moment when Jesus was going to ask them that question. It wasn't just spontaneous in the moment. God had been working on them, and they knew that something was coming, and part of them was kind of in doubt because they're like, is this really going to happen, or am I just all up in my head? Did God really say something was going to happen of significance? When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And then the moment comes, and then they're overwhelmed in that moment because they realize that what they felt and what was told them, they were aware of. Jesus has the ability, my friends, to see something more. He saw it. He knew it. He saw it. I want to tell you this morning, Jesus sees your good deeds. You know those things that you do that nobody else sees? Those things where you send those unsigned cards to encourage. Those moments where you have dropped money to somebody. Those moments where you've dropped off food. Those moments where you have taken care of people. And as you begin to do service, you begin to think to yourself, you know, I didn't get the Mother of the Year award. I never got the Father of the Year award. And you see people who are honored for various things here at Rush Church or other places. I want you to know that doesn't really matter. Jesus sees your good works. Not only does Jesus see your good works, but He sees those things that you don't want other people to see. He sees those things that your spouse doesn't know about. He sees those things that your children don't know about. He sees those secret sins that you commit only when you're by yourself and you ask yourself, it's not really, and you say to yourself, it's not really going to hurt anybody. Nobody's aware. My friends, Jesus sees something more. He sees into our hearts. Not only does He see our good deeds and does He see our sin, but He sees our potential. As He looked at these fishermen, these uneducated men, He saw the potential to become great leaders and great preachers. The religious leaders of the day would never have considered, would never have looked to these individuals, but as He sees them, He sees the potential that is contained within them. He knows what they are capable of. My friends, this morning I want you to know He sees something more. Jesus is omnipresent, meaning He's all present. God is capable of being everywhere at the same time. And it means that His divine presence encompasses the whole of the universe. There is no location where He does not inhabit. God is distinct from the universe, but inhabits the entirety of it. He is everywhere at once. And I don't know about you, but that makes me feel good to know that my God sees something more. My God is present with me anywhere and everywhere I go. I don't know about you, but that encourages me this morning. And so I want to ask you the question. Do you really think you can hide anything from God? I've shared this story before, but it's a good story. I remember sitting in a McDonald's with my family. It was over in the Dayton, Ohio area. And I don't remember why we were there, but we were there with the kids. And you like to watch people? I love watching people. I like watching people at the mall. I like watching people when I'm in a restaurant. The mall is a great place because people do things and they don't even think about the fact people are watching. They say things, act ridiculous, and you think to yourself, do they realize how ridiculous they look? Do they realize how rude they are? I worked at McDonald's growing up, and when I was in college, and I remember one day when a guy came in and he was angry. He had gotten pickles on his cheeseburger, and he did not want pickles. And he came in with that cheeseburger, and he just, I didn't order pickles! And everyone behind the counter just kind of stopped and froze, and everybody that was in line stopped and froze. And all of a sudden, the guy had the attention of the entire McDonald's. And he's sitting there, and then all of a sudden he starts to look around, and he starts to look down because he realizes how foolish he really looks. You know, God sees something more. And when we're sitting in this McDonald's and this little girl comes in, she must have been junior high age, and she went up to the front of the counter and she said, I would like a cup of water. She'd evidently done this before, and the girl slid her a cup, and she went over to the fountain drinks, and she watched the people who were behind the register when they weren't looking. You think she got water? She got herself a Coke. She didn't think anybody saw. She didn't know a Nazarene preacher was watching her lie to somebody at the front and then go over and take that. Do you really think you can hide anything from God? You think you can hide your potential? You think you can hide your good deeds? You think you can hide your sin? I want you to know this morning, He sees something more. He saw those men and He saw something more. Look at verse 21 with me. Then they went to Capernaum, and right away He entered the synagogue on the Sabbath and began to preach or teach. And they were astonished at His teaching, because unlike the scribes, He was teaching them as one having authority. Not only does He see something more, He knows something more. You look at the obstacles that you have in life and the things that are in front of you. And maybe this morning you've come and there is some sort of obstacle in your life. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a financial crisis. Maybe it's something that is hanging over your head and you're waiting for the world to collapse in around you. What I want you to know is that Jesus can see the other side of that obstacle. You know those secrets that you hide away in your heart you don't think anybody knows? I want you to know something. Jesus knows those secrets. You know the future that seems uncertain, and all you know is the next step that you're going to make, and you can't see any further than that, and you wonder what is going to happen. I want you to know Jesus knows what's going to happen to you next week. Jesus knows what's going to happen to you next year. Jesus knows what's going to happen to you from 10 years from now. He knows what's going to happen with your kids. He knows what's going to happen. Jesus is all-knowing. He's all-knowing. God is all-knowing. He is aware of our past. He's aware of our present. He's aware of our future. Nothing takes Him by surprise. I don't know about you, but that is encouraging to me. My life was full of surprises with 5 kids. I never know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. But I am glad to know that I serve a God that does. His knowledge is total. He knows all that there is to know and all that can be known. You think that your problems are unknown to God. My friends, they are not. I'm reminded of a work and witness trip that some of my friends took to the Amazon. And they went to the Amazon. They were in canoes in the Amazon. There were no roads to the churches that they were going to. The only roads were the waterways. And as they were making those trips down the Amazon, I don't know if you know about the Amazon, but it floods every year. And the water rises up, and the tributaries reform. And so what was there one year is not always there the next year. And those tributaries break off into all kinds of all small little creeks and everything. And so you can get lost pretty easily. And one canoe got separated from another canoe with some of our people on it. And the guy was a little bit lost and a little disoriented, and he hit something when he shouldn't have, and the canoe flipped. And the wood that the canoe was made out of was heavier than normal wood, and so rather than float, it sank. Here we have a third of our work and witness team treading water in the Amazon in caiman, piranha-infested waters. Some of the ladies can't swim, and they're grasping a hold of guys, and they're screaming. And one lady, they thought they were going to have to knock her out because she was screaming and flailing, and the guy she was on top of thought he was going to go under and drown because of her. And then other guys are scrambling, and they're grabbing a hold of trees, and as they're grabbing a hold of trees, there are little ants that are coming out, and the ants are beginning to bite them, and it is just a worst-case scenario. Here, this group of Nazarenes thought they were going to go on this work and witness trip and go in the Amazon and see all these cool things, come back with all these cool pictures, and be able to tell, and now they're thinking, I've never gone anywhere in my life, and now I'm going to die in the middle of the rainforest, and nobody's going to even be able to find my body. That's what was going through their minds. Little did they know at the exact moment and time of the day when they were going through that, there was a lady in our church that for some reason had been prompted to go to her knees in prayer about the team and their safety. We timed it. We figured out. She knew the exact time because she thought, that is so unusual. And the exact time was the same time the canoe had flipped, and she was already on her knees praying for them. You think your problems are unknown to God? I cannot tell you the number of times where I've needed a word of encouragement. Or there have been financial issues that I've dealt with over the years, and the dollar figure that I've needed has come in the mail from somebody I did not expect, somebody I didn't see coming. Or that word of encouragement came from somebody I ministered to 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, through Facebook or through a card or whatever, they make themselves known and they share something with you at the moment you need to hear it. And there are others here this morning that if we were to ask for testimonies, they would talk about how as they went through crisis moments in that time when they were going through that somehow God spoke to them. You think your problems are unknown to God? Well, you are wrong. He knows something more. I'm glad He knows something more than me. I'm glad He knows more than me. What kind of a shape would we be in if the full knowledge of what is supposed to happen in the church was only known to the pastor? Boy, you guys would be in a world of hurt right now. I'm just going to tell you that. I'm glad I serve a God who knows something more than me. I'm glad I serve a God who knows something more than you. I'm glad I serve a God who is all-knowing. Not only does He see something more, not only does He know something more, but as we look in verse 23 through 27, He has something more. Just then a man with an unclean spirit was in their synagogue, and he cried out, what do you have to do with us, Jesus Nazarene? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. But Jesus rebuked him and said, be quiet and come out of him. And the unclean spirit convulsed him and shouted with a loud voice and came out of him. Then they were all amazed, so they began to argue with one another, saying, what is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. He has, my friends, something more. I serve the only God who has the ability to take a sinner and the sins that we have committed and has the ability to truly forgive them. Now, I can forgive my spouse for something that she's done to me, and she can forgive me. But the only one who can right the wrong, that can truly change the heart, to offer true forgiveness, is Jesus Himself. I serve a God who has the ability to heal. He has the ability to take a person who has some uncurable disease. He has the ability to take somebody who has got a broken body and physically touch them, and in a moment take them from a point where they were broken to a place of restoration. I serve a God who not only heals the body, but He heals the soul. And the brokenness that we have in spirit when we walk around defeated, He has the ability to take that and to heal it in a moment. I serve a God who brings closure, when we have issues and problems. I serve a God who can heal relationships. I serve a God who has something more, and thank goodness He has a lot more than what I had to offer. He has something more for you. He's omnipotent. Omnipotent means He's all-powerful. God has supreme power. God can do anything He wants. He is not subject to the physical limitations that man is. Being omnipotent, God has the power to overcome wind and water and gravity and physics. God's power is infinite, or God's power is limitless. I got a question. Do you think you can outgive God? Do you think you can outlove God? Do you think you can outdo God? I have a story that I will never forget as long as I live. I was serving the Lord, ringing the bell for the Salvation Army. And in my mind, I was thinking about all the hours that I was giving up to that boredom of just sitting there hour after hour ringing the bell. And things happen when you ring the bell for the Salvation Army. Not everybody is pleased to see you. You see the people who turn away and then walk into walls. That's always entertaining. You see, I've had people chew me out. I've had people flip me off going into a grocery store. I've had anything and everything you could imagine. And so you're sitting there and you're thinking, woe is me. Look at how I'm suffering for God and doing service and helping people out. I'm such a great Christian. I'm doing such a great job. And then comes in that little girl. I could still see her face. I can see her long jet black hair. I can see her tattered, pink, dirty coat that she was wearing. I can see when she came up to me and she wanted to know what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I shared with her what Salvation Army was and what kind of needs they took care of. And she said, okay. And she went in. And she bought just basic things. I think it was bread and milk. And she comes out with a few cents. And she walks in and she puts it into the kettle. And I thought, wow, that's really, really neat. She returns in 20 minutes with her piggy bank. Girl who probably was supposed to be receiving help from the organization I was helping out emptied every cent that she owned into that kettle jar. The widow's mite, giving all that you have, comes to mean a whole new thing when you see something like that. And all of a sudden, I was humbled. I hadn't really given anything. I'd given out of my excess, and she had given out of all she had. You think you can outgive God? I'm not preaching a health and wealth sermon. I'm not saying if you give money to the church that you're going to be rich. Don't get me wrong. But the blessings we receive as we try to outgive God are far outweigh whatever we give financially. You think you can outlove God? You think you can do more? You think you can outdo God? I want to let you know this morning that it is an impossibility. God will always be capable because He has something more. I'm going to ask if the worship team would come this morning. And I want to call your attention as they're coming to verse 28. It says very simply, His fame then spread throughout the entire vicinity of Galilee. He sees something more, my friends, this morning. He knows something more. He has something more. And the reason for that is just very simply, He is something more. Word spread. And are we shocked by that when we read verse 28, that word spread concerning Him? Why wouldn't it? If a God like that is capable of knowing that, is capable of doing that, is capable of being that, don't you think that it makes sense that it would spread? And I want you to know, if you don't walk out of here and hear anything else I tell you this morning, I want you to know this. I'm here to tell you this morning that same Jesus is here this morning. That same Jesus has that same sight, that same knowledge, and that same power. He is here this morning. And if you came this morning and you find yourself falling short of what you need, if you find yourself needing a little more grace, a little more encouragement, I don't know what it is that you're lacking, but you say to yourself this morning, I need something more. I want you to know it's yours to be had. All you got to do is respond. I'm going to ask if you stand. And I believe they're going to close with above all. And as they close with above all, as you sing those words, this isn't a seeker call. This is for seekers. It's for believers. You've just come to a moment where you have to lay it all out and say, Jesus, you're something more and I need more of it. Then would you come? Let's sing this morning. If you know the words, I just ask you to close your eyes and sing them this morning.
Above all
continue to play. I want you to know that the life that we're called to live as Christians is not meant to be weak and feeble. It's not supposed to be a deal where it's just a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's not that we just get by the skin of our teeth. That's not the full investment of what we're part of. And if you find yourself there this morning where it's just enough to get by, or maybe it's not even about getting by, maybe it's an issue where you think to yourself, I'm man enough or I'm woman enough that I can handle the problems and the things that I'm dealing with. I just want to let you know you don't have to have that kind of a struggle this morning. I want you to know that what our Creator God, our Savior, has to offer, the life that we're supposed to live is supposed to be victorious. It's supposed to be full of joy. It's supposed to be a life where we have victory over these sorts of things. Why do and struggle by yourself? Why limit what God wants to do in you? They're going to sing one more time, and then when they're done and we get through that chorus, we're going to close in prayer this morning. This is about allowing God to do something more. I want to confess to you this morning, I am not pastor enough to be pastor of Rush Community Church of the Nazarene. I don't have enough gifts and talents to do what I need to do. If I leave God out of the equation and I just say, as Pastor Brett, I'm going to be able to run this church the way it ought to be run, this church is going to be ran into the ground. There's something that has to step in and out and above and beyond me to make Rush do what Rush has to do. I'm not a good enough husband. I'm not a good enough father. I can only do those roles and those things effectively when I allow God to be Lord of my life. And if I'm to be truly honest with you in the morning, there are times where even pastors become confident in their own abilities and they let things slide. I need something more this morning. If you need something more this morning, don't walk out of here wanting. It's here in abundance to be offered. Let's sing one more time. Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man. Before the world began, above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth. There's no way to measure what you're worth. Crucified, lay behind a stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all. I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes this morning. I'm sorry I can't let things go this morning. I feel like a bulldog tenaciously grabbing a hold of something, not going to release it and let it go. I would just ask this morning if you would say, maybe you don't want to come to the altar. Maybe it's an issue of coming in front of people. Why let the devil have victory? If you'd say, Pastor, I need something more, would you pray for me this morning? Would you be willing to raise your hand? There's a hand. There's another hand. There's another hand. There's another hand. There's another hand. God's here. You don't have to come to an altar to experience what God wants to give to you this morning. All you got to have is an open heart and be willing to pray a prayer and ask God to give you what you've come for, which is a blessing. Let's go to the Lord in prayer this morning. You can say something, Rich. Go right ahead.
I don't want to be out of order. I need a mic. I was sitting here. I don't really want to go up there. I don't want to say this, but it's been nearly 20 years. A lot of you know the circumstances that happened in my life. What a message. How if we listen to Christ, how He could change our life, change situations. I'm just going to give you a little bit of what happened in my life. I'm married for almost 38 years. My wife committed suicide. Blew me away. I was devastated. I went for probably 2 weeks, couldn't leave the house, had my own business. I couldn't face it. My youngest son came to the house one day in about 2 weeks, said, "Dad, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm not." I said, "I don't know. I'm mad at the world." And I never took anything, drugs, or at the funeral I took something to get me through that. But I guess the thing that I'm wanting to say is my youngest son came to the house and he said, "Dad, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm not. I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at your mother for what she did. And I'm mad at God. And I don't even like you right now." He took a hold of me and he said, "Tomorrow we're going to do something." So we went down I had a shop in the country, and him and a friend, we got things situated in the truck. It come time about the time that she was to come home. And I said, "Dwight, I got to go to the house." And I went to the house. I went to the front door and I looked out and I said, "God, I've served you, tried to serve you. I need you." And I can tell you like that, there was a sense of God's Spirit come over me, and I was able to deal with life.
Amen.
And I still don't understand it. But I can tell you, I have faithfully served Him, and I have been so blessed to have Lisa into my life and the kids, and to have Richie wanting to go into ministry. But I can tell you, if we put our lives completely in God's will, He'll do the unbelievable.
Amen.
He'll bless our lives beyond anything you can comprehend. And I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but I felt like I couldn't sit there and not come up and tell you this story today.
Amen.
I love our church. I love our pastor and his family. If you look around at the world, Jesus is coming soon.
Amen.
And I can tell you, we know not to dare the hour, but if you look up circumstances, the writing's there. But I'm sorry to be out of order. Thank you.
Amen. He knows. He sees. And He has. Nothing more profound could be said than that this morning. So I just want you to know He's capable of doing what He needs to do for you this morning. He has a gift that He wants to give you this morning. And your choice this morning is to walk out and not receive it, or to extend your hand and take it, what He has to offer. Let's sing that one more time. I know I don't usually do this. I usually let you guys go, but let's one more time. And I don't want anybody, if you don't know the words, I just want you to close your eyes and be in prayer. And let's sing that one more time. And if God directs you, let's come. Let's be honest. Let's be open. Let's receive what God has for us this morning. Let's not give the devil his due.
Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man. You were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure what you're worth. If you believe that He is the more and that He's above all, raise your hand and cry out to Him today. Crucified, laid behind a stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all.
Lord, it's been good to be in your house this morning. I believe we have given the devil a pretty good fight this morning. I know, Lord, that you're working on people and some aren't ready yet. But I am confident and I am sure, Lord, that the work that you've begun in us, that you're going to finish it. And whatever it is you're working on this morning, Lord, maybe we weren't ready this morning, but we're going to be ready. And the devil's scared. Lord, we just pray that you would be with us. We pray, Lord, that we would be able to walk out of here knowing and accepting the truth that we serve a God who sees all. We serve a God who knows all. We serve a God who is all. And we can be confident and we can walk sure-footed even though we may not know every step that we're going to take. We may not be able to see the future. We are confident that as we follow God, we're not going to go anywhere we ought not to be. We can be confident that we're going to go, and wherever we go, that you're going to take care and you're going to provide it for us. That we can be confident, we can be assured, Lord, that the life that we live, as we live it in you, will be one of victory, one of victory, one of joy, one that will be not only just satisfactory, but will be overflowing with abundance. God, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you did in my life. Thank you for what you did in Rich's life. Thank you for what you've done in countless lives here at Rush Community. Thank you for what you're going to do and how you're going to transform people. Lord, be with us. We want people to know. We want people to hear that the God who knows all, sees all, and is all is here at Rush Church. We want word to spread. We want people to be aware that when they come here to encounter God. Thank you for being in church with us this morning. We appreciate you. Lord, now allow us to go in peace with our Savior. In your most precious and holy name. And everyone said, Amen. Thank you.
Can we go to the private?
Yeah, we can step in here for a second.